After looking so intensely at the task dialogs using the VCL, we cannot let out the FNC framework. Just as a short introduction, FNC is true cross-platform. You can develop with the same component set for desktop platforms, meaning Windows, Linux, and macOS, and to all the mobile platforms that Delphi supports, of course, meaning Android and iOS. And of course, with TMS Web Core, the web is also supported. The key of these components is that you use the very same FNC components in any of the Delphi frameworks, meaning you use the same control for the VCL, for FireMonkey, and for Web Core. And if you also use Lazarus, you can use the very same components with Lazarus. With same components, I mean you use the same properties, the same methods, and the same events that makes writing source code for the different platforms quite easy if you separate your user interface from your business logic nicely. Coming back to the task dialogs, for an introduction of task dialogs, please go to the VCL, Introduction of the Task Dialog series. Here I'm just going to show how you can build task dialogs with the FNC framework, which components are available, and how to deploy the applications to FireMonkey, the VCL, and to the mobile platform. To be more precise, we're going to build a VCL Forms application, we're going to build the task dialog, and then we're going to build a FireMonkey application and going to build the same task dialog that you see in the bottom right corner here. The task dialog is going to have an introduction, content, and two so-called command link buttons with an warning icon. Pretty simple dialog. We're not even going to have a look at the different return values and all that sort of stuff. That is being explained in the VCL tutorial already. Here the true focus is going to be how you can use the very same component in the different frameworks and also deploy it to an Android device. Let's start with the classic Windows VCL Forms application. Here's the form, and as soon as you enter FNC task dialog in the search bar of the tool palette, you see that there's only one component for task dialogs. So this is the first difference to the VCL approach. The VCL has two controls, one for simple task dialogs and another control for input dialog functionality. And this is one component for the FNC framework. The input functionality is included in the task dialog component. So if you don't use it, you do not specify input control and also set input type to TIT none, and then the input functionality is disabled as if you were using the standard VCL task dialog control. If you want to use the analogy to the advanced input task dialog, you would have to set input type just as you're used from the VCL control. However, we are going to focus on a very simple dialog, and we're going to set the title to task dialog with command buttons. And the instruction we are going to set, if I can find it, instruction we're going to set, do you want to see the new dialog? It's a very standard text that we used. And for content, we're going to use, this is the content. Of course, you also have the expanded text, and all that sort of things available. The icon we wanted to set to warning. And we do not have a preview in the FNC controls. Obviously, the reason for that is we cannot offer preview for mobile platforms and that sort of stuff, so there is no preview on the component. Thus, we're going to specify a button, and that button is going to call the task dialog. We're going to name the task dialog task dialog. Very creative, if you ask me. And click task dialog execute. Just the same thing as in the VCL. Only difference is the result value is t-modal result, which is also an integer, gives you a little bit more flexibility. However, no major difference that we would need a tutorial for that. It's also integers just the same as for the VCL. And what you can do is you simply create your dialogues and look at the return values. There's no difference to the VCL controls. This is the running application. We invoke the task dialog. We see that we're halfway there. The only thing missing right now is the 2 command buttons. And just like in the VCL, we select the component again, go to common buttons and set the TB cancel to true. And the custom buttons, same data structure, string list again, exit application without saving, exit application with saving. Here we go. And let's run this. And you see, we get the 3 buttons just as we get it in the VCL. And we set under options that we want the command links. Start it again. Button, and here you go. This is a task dialog in the VCL as a Windows 32. We could also switch to Windows 64. So this is how the dialog looks in the VCL. Switching over to FireMonkey. This is the FireMonkey application just after we created it. It's set to Windows, and the target platform is also set to Windows. And dropping the task dialog, same component, everything is the same. And really, believe me, everything is 100% identical. So we can set the name to task dialog, set already TDO command links to true. We can set the common buttons, TB cancel, content, this is the content. We set the instruction to do you want to see the new dialog. We set the title to task dialog with command buttons. And what did I miss? The icon. We set the icon to TDI warning. Again, we implement the button click. So we have a T button. We implement the onClick event, task dialog, and as promised, same method, same return type, just a different framework. So FNC gives you the exact same thing for all the frameworks, which makes development with FNC components so much easier because you need to learn your components only once. So if you know how to work with them in the VCL, you know how to work with them in FireMonkey. And if it is ever needed, you can also use them in Lazarus. And here we go, task dialog with command buttons. Do you want to see the new dialog? This is the content and the correct icon. Cancel. And again, this is a FireMonkey application. You haven't done much FireMonkey specific stuff so far, thanks to FNC. Let's also define the custom buttons. Exit application without saving. Exit application with saving. And after starting, here's the dialog exactly as we expect it to look. So how about Android? How much work do we have in order to deploy something complex like this with a dialog to Android? So we double click Android. Of course, my Android devices are already set up. I'm not going to explain how to set up Android in Red Studio. So I select my device, which is identified as Nokia 6.1. We get all the fancy sounds after connecting. And let's start the app on Android. So here's our application on the mobile Android device. And I tap the button 1. And there you go. This is the task dialog, and it also supports rotation. So if I turn the device, you see what's happening. So I actually have a device connected to my computer. This is not like a simulator or anything. This is actually a device that's connected to my computer. So I mentioned VCL, FireMonkey, Lazarus, and of course the web. This is an empty TMS web core application. So yet again, task dialog, and this is the component. The properties are exactly the same, and this is one of the few times I'm actually going to fast forward because you don't need to see me put this together a third time. So after setting all the properties, I also add a button, which is called T-Web button in TMS Web Core. Double click, and just like in all the other frameworks, execute, same result. So my statement also holds for the web. Start this. Here's my web project with the button. And there you see the task dialog inside of a web browser with the exact same functionality as in all of the other frameworks and on the other platforms. If that isn't amazing, I don't know what is. So with TMS FNC, you're prepared for all the frameworks and all the platforms with the same set of components. Let's just throw in a second example. I'm only going to show this example for FireMonkey on Android with this setup using radio buttons, verification text, and we're going to check the verification text by default, and instead of using a cancel button, we're going to use an OK button. There's our empty form. I'm going to switch to Android right away. My device is already selected. I'm going to use a button. If you want, by the way, you can also use an FNC button. Then you have the same functionality for the button on all of the frameworks. And I'm going to write task dialog.execute. And of course, we need to add the task dialog to the form. And you see the other components from the VCL are grayed out because they are not available in FireMonkey. Task dialog. And just like the last time, I'm not going to explain that much because there's not that much of a difference here. However, we're going to use the radio buttons this time, not the custom buttons. Store settings in registry. Store settings in XML file. Okay. And for content, we have the wonderful text. This is the content. For instruction, we have the text saving, application settings. Perfect. For the verification text, do not ask for this setting next time. And in the options, we can say that the verification is checked by default. That should be it. And voila. Here's our TMS FNC button that I can tap. And here we see that the dialog is shown exactly. Of course, our verification text is too long. This is something I wanted to show as well. And that is something you need to check all the time. Make sure that your text are appropriate for the platform that you want to use. After making these changes, you see that the text is no longer cut off and the button also isn't pushed down to the bottom of the dialog, so everything fits nicely. So whenever you deploy an application, in my opinion, there's no way around to checking every dialog, how it looks on the devices that are being used by your customer. Of course, if you keep things short, you run less likely into issues like this. I just think it's important to point these things out. I'm already at the end of this tutorial for the FNC component. If you want to go into more detail, please have a look at the VCL tutorial, which explains all the task dialog options in more detail. The focus of this tutorial has been that you are truly cross-platform using the FNC toolset. Furthermore, you're not only cross-platform, you're also multi-framework, meaning you have the VCL, FireMonkey, Lazarus, and the web with the same set of components.